Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us as you are rolling in. My name is Chrissy Lebke, and I am an admissions counselor here at the University of Denver. I am very pleased that we have R.D. Perry, an assistant professor, joining us today. A few housekeeping items for you, just so you can feel like you can interact with us this evening. Just know that you're able to ask questions anytime throughout our time together. So please use the Q&A function that you have available to you. Also, if you would like to enable closed captioning, you are able to do so. I again want to thank everybody for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to RD to tell us more about the English department here at the University of Denver.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I am happy to meet you somewhat remotely here. So what I'm going to do tonight is give you a quick overview of the English department, and then I'll basically answer any questions that you might have. This says that my screen sharing is disabled, Chrissy. So if you
Let
want.
me double check that.
Okay.
Thank you. 1 second. That's okay. I will share for you since I have it already
Great.
pulled up right here. And that will just make it easier for everybody. Thank you for everyone for bearing with us. All right. I just want to make sure that you're able to see that now.
Yes,
Okay.
great. So as I said, this is the kind of lounge in the Department of English and Literary Arts. It actually no longer looks this way. It looks much nicer. So we need to get a new picture up. We've made this into a library. Our chair and the chair's assistant are there. However, the person that you want to talk to, and this is the next slide, Chrissy. Um, should you need to talk to anyone, yeah, there we go. You should talk to this guy, who is, I'm like the junior version of him. So it's another English professor with glasses. So this is Dr. Graham Faust. He is our director of undergraduate studies. He has his contact information is up there. And just so you know how to get in touch with him. So you'll be able to, as Chrissy will tell you, at the end of this, you can get in touch with admissions officers for this, that, or the other thing that you need. But you can also reach out to Graham to talk to him further about the English major, or he's the one that would make any decisions about exceptions or do any kind of early guidance for you as you consider the major and need to know this, that, or the other thing about it. Next slide, please. So there are three concentrations in English and literary arts. There's literary studies, there's creative writing, and there's English education. I will focus primarily tonight on literary studies and creative writing. That's where the bulk of our majors are. English education is a much more rarefied track, and I'm happy to talk to you about it should you have questions. But there's a lot more moving parts, and it's not quite as streamlined as the other two. The other two, the streamlining will give you, like, if you follow them, that also applies to the English education major. It's that you also need to be aware of a couple of other things going through English ed. So like I said, I'll focus primarily on literary studies and creative writing. Next slide, please. Um, so the first question you might have is, well, I know I'm interested in English, or I'd like to dip my toe in the fall. So what class should I take? And the answer to that for the fall quarter would be this English 1110 class known as Literary Inquiry. There is the general bulletin description here. Those are overarching descriptions that tell you just kind of in general what the class is going to be about. We run several different sections of English 1110, so they will have their own kind of concerns and their own kind of focus underneath this broader rubric. But you can see that this is quite broad, and it really is a kind of introductory course in a lot of different ways. It also counts for one of your core courses, if that is something that you need as well. So taking this class not only gives you a little bit of a sense of what the English major might be like, but it also functions to fulfill a core requirement. So it does something that you'll need it to do anyway, which is one of the AI Society requirements. So next slide, please. As I said, the versions of these vary quite a bit depending on who's teaching them. I thought I'd go ahead and show you the course description that is the class that I'm teaching this quarter. And so it gives you a sense of, okay, well, what does an actual class look like under that broader rubric? This is called Pre-Modern and Contemporary Horror. About half of the class is looking at works from before modernity. So we're doing Beowulf, Dante, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and various other things. And then the other half of the class is concentrating on horror films. And so it's really exploring, okay, well, what does, we have a very strong sense of what horror as a genre works like in a contemporary situation, but what about in a world that's very, very different from our own? And so it uses both the old literature to illuminate the current situation as well as current film to illuminate the old literature. So that just gives you a sense of what a version of that class might look like. Next slide, please. So the literary studies concentration is broken up into different sections. The first one is called Foundations. There is one required class in that, which is English 1010. We run it in the winter and in the spring usually. And this is, it's called Introductory Topics in English, also very broad. It depends on who's teaching it, what you're going to do exactly in there, but its focus is primarily on skills. So you, if you take the 1110, decide, okay, absolutely, I want to be an English major, you can go ahead and take 1010, or if you know you want to be an English major, you can hold off and just take 1010 in this upcoming, the next winter. The skills that you learn or focus on in 1010, close reading, what is it, why do we do it, so on and so forth, as well as different genres. You know, what is it that makes a novel, short story a short story, what logic do they follow, why are they constructed in this way as opposed to this other way, what affordances does that have, so on and so forth. So those are the overarching themes that you would focus on in English 1110. Next slide, please. Core Studies is the 2000 level that's primarily aimed at everyone from sophomores on out, a little bit more advanced topics. Again, the classes vary extremely widely. You need 3 classes at the 2000 level. Next slide, please. And you need 2 classes at the 3000 level. And the 3000 level is primarily for more advanced students, either juniors or seniors. Again, a ton of different classes fall under this rubric. Next slide, please. In addition to these, to thinking about the levels and keeping track of them, we also, for this last class, and then you have brought back historical field requirements. So we will want you to take classes in the broad range of English literature. 2 classes that focus on literature before 1700, 2 classes between 1700 and 1900, and 2 classes after 1900. And those can be either at the 2000 or 3000 level. Next slide, please. We also have what's known as an internationalization and diversity requirement. We want you to take 3 different classes that either cover material created outside the United States and the United Kingdom, or cover material made by minority communities within those. Those 2 can happen at the 2,000 or 3,000 level. So this might sound like a lot of different classes, but actually several classes will be able to do multiple or triple duty for you in here. So next slide, please. Oh, and then you have additional electives to fill out the requirement. Next slide. As I was saying, some classes perform double or triple duty. This is one of those, one of them that I teach, in fact, which is called Early Globalisms. It fills a 2,000 level requirement, an English historical period before 1700 requirement, and a diversity and internationalization requirement. So there's a bunch of classes like that in the bulletin and that we offer regularly. So that you actually move through with quite a bit of leeway. This class focuses on early literature as well, and primarily the kind of movement and travel literature within that. Next slide, please. For the creative writing concentration, it's a little bit different. You have to take an intro to creative writing as well as the English 1010. Next slide. For your 2,000 level classes, you need, in addition to 2 of the regular 2,000 level classes, you'll have to take a poetry workshop and a fiction workshop. So one of each of the 2 primary kind of genres or modes that we divide literature into at the creative writing track. Next slide, please. And 2 classes at the 3,000 level. One of which needs to be an advanced workshop in either fiction or creative writing. Next slide, please. Yes, so one advanced creative writing workshop. You can do any of those. And then actually for you all, we have gotten rid of the senior seminar requirement, so you should ignore that last thing on that slide. Next slide. And then you need another class to round that out. Next slide. Yeah. So all majors, the following things apply for everyone. You need no more than 3 classes at this 1,000 level. That includes the English 1010 and English 1000. So if you're thinking about creative writing, you know, be very, very mindful about these 1,000 level classes. As I said, there's the diversity requirements. Those are also in operation for the creative writing major or creative writing concentration, and there are the historical fields as well. You can take, you need to take 11 hours to major in English, or 11 classes to major in English. And like every other major at the university, with a couple of exceptions, English is capped at 15 classes, so you can take no more than 15 classes in English. We would love to have you, but they want you to get a broader kind of education than that. Next slide, please. There is also a distinction or honors in English, and this is something to think about as you get further along in the program. You'll write an honors thesis, you take directed readings with people. It can be a really substantial kind of piece of work, either creative or critical. And if you're thinking about going to grad school on the other side of your degree, it's a little early for you to be thinking about that perhaps, but if you are, then this is something that looks very, very good for that. And I think that should be the end of the slideshow. Yeah, great. So that is, as I said, a very quick overview of the English major. I'm happy to talk about anything else. It's a very and it's designed to be a very flexible major. We want you to be able to double major very easily. We want you to be able to take this major as one of the ones that you may have a passion about, and then, you know, if you're being kind of pressured to do a more pragmatic major, you have plenty of space to do that. Although I would say that English also is very pragmatic. Our students get all kinds of jobs in all kinds of fields. So that is all I have to say for now until I answer some questions.
Yes, so if you're joining us, please feel free to utilize the Q&A function to get some of your questions across. We will take all and any questions. If you're thinking it, somebody else is probably thinking it too. So please feel free to send those across. While you're typing away right now, I'll get us started with just a quick question of, when you talk to students, RD, what is one of the overall favorite classes that the English department has to offer?
Oh, that is, in some ways, it really depends on what their passion is, right? So if they are really passionate about creative writing, I'm going to answer this according to the tracks, really. If they're passionate about creative writing, then usually their senior creative writing seminar is something that they value very much. Those are very small classes. They're capped at 15. They're usually a little bit smaller than that. And you're actually working with someone who is either a novelist who is, you know, or one of our faculty members who's actually a novelist and has published novels, or a poet and is making a living as a poet, as hard as that is to fathom. And so those classes are really kind of revelatory for people. Other than that, you know, the 3,000 level classes in general, in part because, again, the small sizes and the fact that it allows us to really focus on something that is much more in depth than a normal sort of class. So there's one that's running on, for instance, the author Samuel Beckett right now, that people are absolutely loving. Their minds are being blown every day. I teach a Chaucer class regularly under that. There is a class on Black feminist writers, right, that people love deeply. So in some ways, it's designed for you to follow your interest into these more advanced topics and to explore and say, hey, actually, that's a sort of writing that I've never really encountered much. And as it turns out, I really love it and I really want to know more about it. One more I should mention is the dystopia novels class. People love that in part because often they've grown up reading like YA dystopian novels. And so it's like, oh, okay, like out of what world is the Hunger Games or something like that coming out of?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a class I would like to take for sure. Okay, so we had some questions come through. The first question is, can someone in the creative writing concentration take classes in other concentrations or vice versa?
Yes, absolutely. So you're not wedded to one or the other for quite some time, actually. You know, you could even switch to the creative writing concentration your senior year and then do the like 1, 2, 3 sequence. It would be a lot, but you could do it. Most classes are going to count just generally, right? And that's why those diversity classes count generally, as well as the historical field ones. You have to take those in both concentrations. And then the electives, you know, you have 3 electives in the literary studies concentration. All of those could be creative writing if you love that, but you don't want to concentrate in it for whatever reason. So yes, we specifically give you a good bit of leeway there.
Awesome. Another question that came in are there any particular internships that English majors can have?
We have had our majors do a bunch of different internships. Um, So, for instance, I had one of my majors who interned with Jared Polis over last summer, which is, interesting because it's, one would expect a political science major to do that, but they needed someone for the comms, communications team. So, English majors are very good at writing, and so that's what they wanted. That's just one example. There we are aligned with this thing called the Denver Publishing Institute, which also has connections with all of these different publishers. And so that allows us to have some sort of movement of our students into various like internships with publishers. You're not doing the kind of like big New York publishers, obviously, if you're in Denver over the summer, but sometimes they will have kind of West Coast or Western US operations that need interns. And then there's also all of these kind of smaller publishing houses that also need interns. So like, it may not be Penguin Random House, but it's, Red Hen Press or something like that.
This next question kind of goes down a different path, but similar to that. And what opportunities or resources are there for creative writing concentration majors who are aspiring to get their work published?
Yes. So the most important thing to do as a creative writing major that wants to get your work published is to meet people that are publishing their work, right? And so in part because those people will have access to agents, they have access to publishers, they have access to this, that, or the other thing. And so our creative writing program is very, very strong. We have one of the oldest and most respected PhDs in creative writing in the country, which means that we have all of these grad students that are doing creative writing as well as faculty. And you'll take classes with both of them, and getting to know them means also you get to know their kind of networks of people. So for instance, not even one of our faculty, but one of our grad students this past year, her first novel came out, and Netflix has optioned it and is developing it to a series. And so, if you take a class with her, then all of a sudden you have access to, and she likes you and you get along with her, then you have access to the kind of network that she has created. And so that's really a lot of how that creative writing publishing gets done these days. It is less and less that you just like send out a manuscript randomly to a massive publisher and they just like discover it on a pile or something like that. You find it, you get to know an agent, and the agent sets you up with people.
Awesome. I can't wait to find out what Netflix has to do with that, or what they're going to be able to do with that. Another question that came in, what are some career paths outside of secondary education and academia that you have seen from your students?
Yes, so a lot of different ones. As I said, that politics is actually something that I've seen a lot of our students go into, not as like politicians, but like, it's not like the mayor, but the kind of like apparatus that the politicians need, again, kind of comms departments, marketing. Major corporations need people that can write just very short forms very well. And so you get all of these different large corporations that need people who specialize in English because they know how to read and write very clearly and can produce, kind of like press releases, internal memos, so on and so forth. So we actually have a lot of people going into the corporate sector as well. And then, of course, one of the great kind of like I mean, this takes another degree afterwards, but English majors are also one of the great feeders into law schools as well. So a lot of our students end up becoming lawyers. again,
Question.
it's a thing you need to know how to read and write about, you know.
Yeah, a question with that. Would you say that you see some students doing the 3+3 program, so going through the English program and then start working towards their JD through that program?
Yes, everyone, it's not super common because you really have to mean it. And so some people really want to kind of wait to be like, wait, do I actually want to be a lawyer? Um, and so you know, they want to do a little bit of soul searching first, which is totally fine, and kind of like what college is for. We do see people do that, but primarily if they really know that that is kind of the end goal that they're working towards.
Yeah, and for our viewers, that is a great opportunity that we have here at the University of Denver is you can start actually working towards your law degree as an undergraduate student, and it saves you money and time. So it's a really great resource, like Artie said, if you already know that's what your path is, to start working towards that. Um, More on the soul finding side, how would a semester abroad fit into the English program?
We love for our students to have semesters abroad. Normally, if so, in terms of like classes for us, if you take a literature class somewhere abroad, England will be the big exception, but not always. I mean, you can take classes in England that would also fit into this. But say you're in Guatemala and you take some sort of literature class, you know, you would get credit for an internationalization class, international literature class, um, for that. So not only can you work and add or accrue kind of classes while you're abroad within our own major, but we are very willing and happy for you to study abroad and to work with you to make that work as well. Almost all of our students do it. A huge number of them do it. And so that's part of the flexibility of the major really allows for that. Um, we're also very happy to write you usually recommendations and stuff like that. I've written a ton of those for people very early, like who've taken, you know, English 1110 with me, and then have gone on to study at different places. My own network, I know tons of people in England, I know tons of people in France and Germany. And so very often, if you're going to some university there, one of us will know someone from that university or know a professor there to say, oh, you should look into their classes or whatever.
Awesome. This is more a logistical question that came in. Are there any technology requirements for an English major at the University of Denver?
Not really. You will, I mean, you'd have to know Word, Microsoft Word fairly well by the end of it because you're going to be writing papers. We give you opportunities to do different technological things, right? Sometimes in my Shakespeare class, I have students like kind of film scenes that they put on or adaptations of that. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that, but in terms of like what we are forcing you to do, those are very minimal requirements.
Great. And the last question, I think this is a perfect one to end on. How many people from the creative writing program, or maybe just the English department in general, have gone on to become very successful in what they're doing? Or maybe if there's a few notable alumni that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, so a goodly number of us. I have forgotten the name of someone who is like a Hollywood producer, which is bad. I should I should remember that. We have several novelists that are out and about. Mona Awad is one of the big ones. You know, her books end up on bestseller lists these days. All's Well, I think, is her most recent one. She would be a very clear example of that. Nas, as I said, is, you know, one of the one of the current students. So and then from like the undergraduate level, there are several students who have gone off to other like graduate programs and other kind of uh, other kinds of um, uh, like legal work and so on and so forth, and so are important in their individual fields, but maybe wouldn't be like a name that you knew right away.
You would be surprised to how many people there are working behind these grandiose operations who have ties to DU. So, well, thank you. This is, we're wrapping up on our time here. I'm gonna
Oh,
I'm
you
gonna throw a link in the chat to be able to connect with your admissions counselor, and we can get you in contact with the English department or any other place that you're looking to find out more information. If you're curious, we have one more night of our virtual open house, so feel free to check out what sessions we're offering tomorrow on our visit page. And once again, thank you all very, very much for coming this evening. Thank you, especially RD, for sharing all about the English department. I know I definitely learned something tonight. So
and again, feel free also to reach out to either Graham Faust or to myself.
awesome. Thank you everyone so much. And I hope you have a safe and good rest of your evening. Bye.